Welcome to the XY Advisor Podcast, a global community of financial advisors sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice. To get involved, go to xyadvisor.com or simply download the XY Advisor app. Hub24 is on a mission to empower advisors to deliver better financial futures for their clients. They are dedicated to customer service excellence and delivering innovative product solutions that create value for advisors and their clients. These are just some of the reasons why advisors rate them number one for overall satisfaction and why their managed portfolio solution has been rated best in market 5 years running. Hub24 believes nothing happens in isolation. So they're working together with advisors, licensees, and industry leaders to leverage their data and technology expertise to help solve key challenges in the delivery of financial advice, so more Australians can access cost-effective advice. Welcome back to the XY Advisor Podcast. I'm Fraser Jack, and today I'm joined by somebody who a lot of people would know from around the industry or from the TV itself, Joey McCann.
Hey Fraser, happy to be here with the XY crew today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for bringing the energy. But let's start with a little bit about what you're doing right now, because you've had a few changes recently, and we'll probably get into a lot of this conversation. But you've done a lot over the last few years. You've been on a reality TV show, and now you've got a new job. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's right. I have just started a new gig, and I think that came off the back of a bit of soul searching and enlightenment I found out in the Aussie Outback in the recent season of Survivor. I think I was obviously on the Brains tribe in that, and I got to meet some amazing people. I was inspired by some of the amazing things that they do and the way in which they contribute to society. And I think I got out of that, and I felt like it was time for a change. So after 7 years in licensee land, I made the jump over to, I guess we'll call it the fintech side of things. I've joined PADUA Financial Group as their head of advice sales.
Fantastic. Now, that's not an unusual place for you, which we'll probably get into a bit later in the conversation, but you've, technology has sort of been in your blood for some time.
Oh, definitely. Look, I think for me, technology it's what's going to change this game. I think the advice game, look, it's, at the end of the day, there's so many challenges the advisors out there are facing today, but I think technology and like intuitive technology that actually helps them do what they do best, and that's, highlight the value of advice to their clients, I think is key. But also, another big component of what we do, it's sort of combining that really great technology with smart people. And I think that's a winning combination.
Fantastic. Now let's go back in time and explore your journey. Tell us about how you got into the profession in the first place.
Yeah, right. Well, it is quite an interesting journey, because prior to joining or starting in this great profession, the financial advice profession, I was a tradesman, actually, a fitter machinist down in Canberra. I worked at the Royal Australian Mint, that little magical land where they make all of the coins. And I did an apprenticeship there, a 4-year apprenticeship as a fitter machinist. It was probably the end of my third year, I think, there, where I bumped into my cousin, Matt Esler, who is actually the founder of one of the co-founders of Midwinter, but also the founder of PADUA, where I am today. And I bumped into my cousin and I said, I heard you're doing really well up there in the big smoke. It was like, how does a young kid from Canberra crack that, financial services game? And he said, well, Joey, firstly, you need a few bits of paper to say that, like at the bare minimum, a diploma, but, ideally a degree and whatever else. So I said, look, I'm doing my apprenticeship, but I'm happy to, do a little cheeky diploma in financial services on the side in between packing shelves and boxing Olympians in the Arvo. Heck, there's enough hours in the day to get whatever done, anything you've done that you put your mind to. So I think I got enrolled. I called him back 3 months later. I said, cuz, I've finished, and he said, oh, you finished the first subject. Good, keep up the good work. I said, no, I finished the whole diploma. Now what? And he said, geez, 3 months, like in between all this other stuff you're doing. I said, I told you I want this. I want this, my friend. And then he said, all right, we'll get you enrolled in the advanced diploma. I think that took a little bit longer. But at sort of the same time I finished my apprenticeship, and they offered me they sort of said, we want to bring you on. We want to fast track you to foreman. I said, thanks, guys, but no thanks. I've now got an advanced diploma in financial services. I'm moving up to the big smoke, and I'm going to change the game.
Fantastic. What a story. Now that from the background of you started out as a fitter and turner on your way to what we call a license to print money, maybe? Would that be accurate?
Yeah, although all we printed there was coins, so I'd need very big pockets, and to finally to make my fortune there. But
you mentioned also in that grab that you were boxing with Olympians. You're obviously fairly active in that space. Was it down the Institute way, or what were you doing there?
Yeah, obviously down in Canberra, you've got the AIS, and a couple of the gyms I boxed out of had some really great, Australian champions and Olympic boxers. So at the time, I was also had grand plans of, winning championships as a fighter. And I think we'll kind of touch on that later. But I think the boxing for me was something I got into sort of 15, 16 years old. But it was one of those sports where, I think if you don't dedicate yourself to it, you get hurt. You get hurt in a big way. So I think for me, it really taught me some good disciplines in life that I've kind of tried to apply to work. I've applied to, my running in later years, but it's, you can't, if you take shortcuts, it's just, you're not going to get the outcome that you want. So I think for me, boxing was always, it was almost like a chess match. I was never someone that would get, a little cheeky jab in the nose and get angry. I would just, automatically think, how do I avoid that happening again? So it was one of those sports I just really loved, and it kind of taught me really good disciplines. And like I said, it's disciplines that I've been able to apply to every sort of facet of my life. But yeah, it was an interesting one. I'd finish work at the Mint. I'd go there and, I'd probably rock up to pack shelves at Woolies that night with a fresh black eye from Jared O'Mahony or one of the killers that I was in the afternoon sparring with. But again, it was just great time in my life where I felt like, and we'll touch on it later as well, like energy, man. Like I think I was living off about 3 hours sleep a night, but it was all I needed because I was just so fired up. I was so, I just had so much drive and I just wanted to be something. I remember getting home from Woolies at 12 and just chipping away at that diploma. And I think, energy, it's a heck of a thing, and it's something you can choose every day. And I'll talk more on that later because I'm getting excited talking about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that you definitely bring the energy and as you said, the disciplines. Was it the boxing and the exercise that gave you the energy, or did you have the energy and you needed the boxing and exercise to try and take some out of you?
Look, I think when you're putting your mind to something you love and you're really dedicating yourself to it, it gives you energy. I'm a big believer. I bounce out of bed every morning. I might be a little dusty from a few too many wines the night before, but again, I just flick that energy switch. I turn it on. I make sure the first interaction of the day, whether it's the bus driver or the barista, I make sure that I light their world up. And I think you give out good energy, and I'm sure the advisors, the XY advisors out there, that the more that you bring to a client meeting and that you give to those clients, you get it back, right? And that just fuels you and gives you more energy. So for me, it was just like, it wasn't any one thing. It was just the combination of every interaction throughout the day, and also coupled with the fact that I was doing, things that I was passionate about. It just, I was like I was on a good trajectory, and I still am. And you can't stop that momentum once you get it.
Fantastic. And I love the idea of making sure that the first interaction of the day is a really positive one. Let's go back to your journey. So then what happened? You've got your cousin getting you to move north, or what was the plan?
Yeah, look, so I turned the Mint down, and I did a little bit of travel, and I think I came back and Matt Ezra at the time said, he'd been telling my story to the fellow directors, Julian Plummer, Andrew McClellan, a few other guys that you probably know well. And they said, get him up for an interview. So I think it was a Friday morning. I had to go buy a suit because I didn't even have one. I remember driving up to Sydney, and I think obviously Matt, being my cousin, had to sit that meeting out. So I remember walking into the midwinter boardroom with all the directors, and I think Pratik, who was the head of paraplanning or something at the time, and I sat down and again I couldn't really relate anything that I had done so much to the role. They sort of said, have you got a good attention to detail? I said, well, I machine precision parts for a living. If to 0.01 of a mil, you can't even see that, right? And if I stuff that up, I could be 5 hours into a job. I've got to start again. So I said, guys, I don't stuff up. I've got a good attention to detail. But I said, look, at the end of the day, you're going to be interviewing a bunch of, really, good uni grads, AMP, Horizons, proteges on the up and up that have been studying this for their whole lives, right? But I said, guys, I will be the first one in and the last one to leave. I'll be the best investment you ever made. Just give me a shot. And then I remember walking out to the elevators. Matt came running out. He just said, they want you to start Monday. So I hadn't even got out of the office before they'd offered me the role. So again, I was living at Canberra at the time. I think I chucked my doona and pillow in the boot, and I drove up to Sydney, slept on a mate's couch for the first 2 months until I found a place. And that was it. On the Monday morning, I started. On my first lunch break, I enrolled in a university degree because I kind of got there, felt like a bit of an imposter. So I remember enrolling in a Bachelor of Commerce and majoring in finance. And I slowly ticked that, as I climbed the corporate ladder, I ticked that off along the way. And 2019, I finally finished that degree. But again, it was just one of those things. I wanted to almost show myself as well that I was committed to this. That's the story. A crazy one.
Yeah, I can just imagine that boardroom to be a fly on the wall in that boardroom. I think the directors wouldn't have known what hit them at the time as you walked in. So you started there as sort of in a paraplanning role. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I started in a paraplanning role, which I think was, we were sort of doing limited advice documents. But again, this is one of I started on the same day as a guy named Michael Dunworth, who's really made it big over in Silicon Valley and done some amazing things over there. But I remember he and I, we were very competitive. So, we kind of came in, and once we got our head around we got our head around it very quickly. I think the business was doing about 30 plans a day or something. And then he and I, we got it to the point where, I think we were doing about 50 to 60 each a day, right? Which they couldn't comprehend. But in addition to that, we also built like a quality assurance checklist around it, right? And we had to check each other's work. And we had a tally board. And if I pinged him for something wrong, I'd take great pleasure in drawing up a little, blotch on the whiteboard. So, what we actually ended up building was this really good, quality assurance kind of process. But at the same time, we were so productive because we were just too competitive. Like, we'd only have 5-minute lunch breaks because we just wanted to beat each other. I would get in at 7 a.m. and he'd already be there. And I'd be like, oh, you're ready to go home today? And it'd be almost 7 p.m. or something. And we'd just still be there punching out plans. I think the directors on our first lunch break, our first drinks together, I think Julian just gave us the black credit card and said, guys, go and order whatever you want. And I think Michael, might have ordered two shots of $80 tequila or something. So yeah, but anyway, it was good times, but it was also like a good opportunity for me to really start to get my head around the whole advice process piece. I think paraplanning is a great place to start in the industry. And then from there, probably, 6 to 9 months in, I kind of moved over to the sales side of things. And yeah, kind of, again, it was a really good, stepping advisors, kind of getting a good understanding of, these strategies that they were compared. Like, I got a real love for the how in depth they go with the clients in terms of trying to get them the best outcome. It's not just picking a product, it's actually modeling strategies against each other. So I think for me, it was a great time in my life because I learned a lot. I kind of, learned to sort of, and I never had a sales role before. So it was good to kind of get into that side of things. And yeah, that's the midwinter journey.
Yeah, fantastic. So sales became business development management became the next step. And then it was around, right now, go out and take your passion and your energy and even a little bit of that competitive nature out there and go and find some advisors.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's the thing. Like, I remember going through, calling these big spreadsheets of advisors. And again, it almost became like not a game, but it was just, it was part of the job. And, you got to, those cold calls, it's like you just got to, these is what young guys in the sales kind of environment need to get their head around, is that you've got to make those calls. You've got to have some very uncomfortable ones at times, but, you get the hang of it, over time. And, I'd love to listen to a few of my calls back. It'd be very, very embarrassing, I think, like me blubbering my way through trying to get that meeting. But yeah, again, it's just been like sales, or, I know some people don't like that word, but at the end of the day, like, the whole advice game, you are selling yourself, you're selling what you do. You've got to be passionate about it, but you also got to be, I think, hungry. If you want to grow and you want success, you've got to stay hungry, and you've got to, surround yourself with people that are going to kind of maintain that hunger as well in you.
Yeah, fantastic. There's a lot of it. That is summed up with attitude, I guess. Tell us about your next step after that.
Yeah. So from there, I took a role over at Morningstar Investment Management at the time. I think it was Ibbotson Associates, but that role was very much, it was separately managed accounts, or SMAs. It just kind of became the new flavor of the month, and we had a diversified set that, again, was taking out to the market I was actually, I think, Morningstar Investment Management's first ever secondment. So actually part of the role, like I learned the SMA story, and then I actually went over to Total Financial Solutions, Account Plus licensee, and, kind of worked out of their head office and kind of took that out. And this was back when the licensees, part of their proposition was, and part of their, key source of revenue was, white labeled products that they'd get a good rate for the advisor and client on, but they'd also, there would be a margin involved. So, but anyway, but I think at the end of that first year, Total Financial Solutions offered me a role. And I think for me, it was licensee land. It really appealed to me. Like at the end of the day, a license, what is it offering? It's offering an advisor, a license to trade. But I think, I saw it as so much more than that. I saw it as one big family. Like you're almost licensee working hand in hand with the advisor, trying to, obviously we're working to help them get the best outcome for their clients. But I just love the camaraderie and the community. I think that's what really drew me to licensee land. And yeah, I spent 7 years in that environment and I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, fantastic. What's I think you sort of brought the teamwork aspect to it. Everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's trying to work together. What were some of your key learnings in that licensee space?
Yeah, I think for me, it's that no firm, I look, every firm and every advisor is, a different way of doing things. And, I think as a licensee, it's, you can't get fall into that trap of just, providing a one size fits all solution. So as my time as a practice development manager, I would try to, tailor, and I guess my proposition or what I was offering for, in terms of servicing the businesses, I try to tailor that to definitely help them meet the needs of their clients. And whether it be, different technologies that they wanted to integrate in their business, it could be helping them out with the people side of things. It was really providing more of a personal touch. And I think that's what I really love. The key learnings are that, look, every business, is different. Every advisor needs different. Every, their clients' needs are going to be different. So it's tailoring your approach just as an advisor would for their different clients, and really coming up with, meaningful solutions that are going to actually help them do what they do best.
So obviously the licensee space changed a lot over that period of 7 odd years that you were there. Tell me about how that evolution, what that looked like from when you got there to sort of when you left.
Yeah, well, look, as I mentioned that, there was licensees definitely had a lot of sources of revenue that, typically through product that would really prop up their balance sheet and ensure that, that they could throw resources at, I guess, supporting the advisors. And again, a lot of the, you look at advisor fees 5 years ago versus today, or even 3 years versus today, as those product subsidies have ended, and licensees have moved to that cleaner operating model, you've really seen, obviously the cost to the business, the advice firm, increase dramatically, which again has been, it's a tough conundrum for licensees, because obviously you've got this revenue stopping, you've got to, push it, increase the advisor fees, but it's also hard to throw additional resources at, key personnel that are going to help these firms, because again, there's just not a whole lot of, revenue available to licensees as there was. It's really, you look at the levers, it's licensee fees, and there's not a whole lot else, right? Like if you're moving away to that clean model. So, that's why I think as time continues to evolve, you will see a lot of consolidation in the licensee space. You'll also see, potentially, these different licensees purchasing, service providers that they can, help, that can help their advisors and whatever else. Because it's become quite it's a tough space to be in at the moment, licensee land, definitely.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that actually in a bit more depth. So obviously there's no crystal ball here. We don't really know what's going to happen. But what are your thoughts of the evolution? You think there's going to be consolidation? There's going to be the big end and the small end. The individual self-license and then big end. What do you think this is all going?
Yeah, I do sort of see it that way. I think there will definitely there's definitely a need for both. I think like there will be that larger end of town that you will see a lot of those mid-tier providers consolidate, and you've seen it recently. Clearview, Centrepoint. You'll see a lot more of this. Century and Wealth Today and others. But there's definitely always going to be a space for that. Unique kind of boutique that does want to, I guess, control their own identity to a certain extent, And I guess they want a bit more freedom in what they do. The bigger you get, the harder it gets, because you've got to, at the end of the day, you've got a license to protect. So, the compliance kind of frameworks that you've got in place you've got to ensure that you're covering all your bases. So that's why, again, you've seen, these documents, just become bigger and bigger. And the time it takes to get advice out the door has actually increased probably since the time I've got here, right? Which is crazy to think. The phone I had when I started in this industry to the phone I've got today, and then you look at the time it takes to produce advice when I started at Midwinter to today, it hasn't really changed. So that was kind of one of the real precursors to what drew me to PADUA. I wanted to be at the forefront of that change and really be a part of a business that's going to move that dial, because it's, like I said, it's the technology, it's that flow of client data from existing CRMs into your fact finds, into your advice request forms, but then it's having a really good quality kind of team there to support you. So I think for me, it kind of covered all the bases, and I really think that for the typical advisor out there, what I saw the advisor ratings, kind of the numbers, it's, they're 48 years old, they've got 103 clients or something, and charging on average 4,000 per client recurring. You look at that 400 plus grand per advisor, there's not a whole, like if you I think they're paying themselves a salary of 130 on average. And then you look at, there might be a support person, you've got your licensee costs, your business overheads, and potentially a paraplanner. Like, there's just no margin in there. There's no profit margin. So I think for me, the firm of the future will outsource. They will embrace technology, because I think you've got to, based on those metrics, it's the only way that you are going to make a profit. But I think if you do it the right way, and, you've got a good kind of support around you for doing that, I think you definitely can.
Yeah, fantastic. I love the attitude, or your attitude in like trying to save the world. It's like, how do we save the world? There's all these problems. How do we solve them? I want to go back a little step. Now, over the last few years, you've obviously, you mentioned you're doing your boxing on the side when you were younger, but you sort of turned that to distance running. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, look, probably about a year after I think I started at Midwinter, obviously I tried to continue the boxing when I moved to Sydney, but it was a bit hard because I was, obviously staying back so late, trying to complete the most plans every day. So actually I just sort of fell into running. Like, I always kind of did a bit of running to keep fit for boxing. I remember coming into work one day in Midwinter, I think I turned to my colleague Retta. I said, Retta, I ran 12 Ks on the weekend. I know because I ran it and then I drove around it to measure, and he said, oh, you should do a half marathon. I was like, what the heck's a half marathon? And he's like, I think it's 21 Ks. So anyway, I Googled, next Sydney half marathon, and the M7 Cities Marathon, which is this, lovely scenic run along the M7 highway in Sydney. But I thought, why register for the half when you can register for the full? So I think I had 4 weeks to prepare. Boom, registered. I think I did one 18K run in the lead up to that. But again, I'm a big believer in biting off more than you can swallow and chewing like crazy. So I rocked up to the start line of that in my Tiger Beer singlet and board shorts. And, I think I had the biggest smile anyone could have ever had. Like, I just sort of went through the motions, and all of a sudden I'm racing a marathon, and I've I kept pinching myself. I'm like, I'm running a marathon. I'm feeling good till about 32 Ks. The wheels fell off. I think every kilometre from there felt like 10, but I still got it done in about 3 hours 51. I couldn't walk for a few weeks afterwards. But I thought to myself, like I said, I'll never do that again at the finish line. But then a couple of weeks later, as I started to be able to walk again, I thought, you know what? If I actually train for one of these and put in a bit more effort, I could bring that time down significantly. So I think a few weeks after that, I'm registered for the Sydney Marathon. I do Melbourne a couple of weeks after that. But then I read this book that changed my life. It was called Ultra Marathon Man, which, I thought marathons were the biggest, baddest things that anyone could do. And I read about this guy doing 100-mile races in America and, ordering pizzas on his long training runs to meet him at intersections and all of this sort of thing. And I thought, this guy's cool. I want to be more like this guy. So I think I Googled that afternoon, ultra marathons in Australia. And 2 weeks later, there was one from, I think, Cairns to Port Douglas. So I found myself racing through the Danger Rainforest, about 85 Ks or something, whatever that was. And then I was hooked. Like, that hurt like hell. But I thought, this is, I think what I loved about it was, yes, people think, oh, it's, how does your body handle it? It's not your body in an ultra marathon or even a marathon. It's your mind, right? And it doesn't matter how fit you are. At 30 Ks, you've burnt your glycogen stores or whatever they are, and yet you hurt. Everything starts hurting. But I think it's your ability to deal with that pain and processing it away. And like, for me, I just smile. I smile out there until I actually believe I'm having fun. And I think so. I finished that race. The next thing I was Googling was world's toughest ultra marathons, and I'm registered, straight away. I pay the deposit to race 250 kilometers, self-supported across the Sahara Desert, the hottest place on earth. So that's kind of how it began. And I haven't stopped. I've raced, deserts, jungles, 250, we're talking 250, 300 kilometer races, mountains of India. I've raced through the freezing cold nights in, New Zealand, 200 Ks straight, and all sorts of crazy things. But what I've loved is that I've learned so much about what you're capable of if you do put your mind to it. Like, I've never not finished a race, and I've raced with, I raced 250 Ks across the Gobi Desert with 2 hernias. I've raced sick, I've raced injured, but again, I will leave on a stretcher before I ever say I quit. And I think that's just made me more hungry in my real day-to-day life. It's, it kind of, I don't know, every kind of facet of my life just falls into place when I've kind of got purpose when I wake up, and purpose comes through getting uncomfortable. It's putting yourself out there, picking challenges that are going to bring out the best in you, and then just biting down on that gum shield and making it happen.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing, isn't it? The fact that nothing's doable until you do it, and then all of a sudden it becomes you're capable of doing it. It's like, that's nothing now. And I love the idea of everything hurts. I know it hurts. I did a marathon once. It hurt, except you get the energy back in the last couple of 100 meters. You go, wow, this is great. Everyone's cheering me on. But the idea of smiling through it, I think that's a really, really important piece here, because there is a certain amount of endurance that advisors have gone through at the moment, that have been going through for the last sort of 7 or 8 years, and to have that positive mindset on the way through, I think is a massive part of getting through this.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I know it's been it has been a very challenging few years for the advisor out there with all the regulatory change, with, I think the great work that they do kind of being dragged through the mud off the back of the Royal Commission, all these sorts of things. I know it's just, it's like the hits just feel like they keep coming, right? And I think couple that with a global pandemic, we're all locked down, and I think all I would say, in terms of like an ultra, when I line up at the start line of a 300 kilometer ultra marathon, a couple of Ks in with my 12 kilo backpack on, everything's hurting already, and you're thinking, geez, how am I going to run another 298 Ks? But I think for me, it's just breaking it down to, it could be the next checkpoint. When I'm really hurting, it's just the tree. I can see, a few hundred meters in front of me. But I think, the advice I'd give any advisor out there, like, I know that you are a resilient lot. You keep showing up for your clients through all of this, but it's, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Don't focus on, Freedom Day and all these sorts of, like, I would just focus on the next goal as break it into bite-sized pieces, because again, it's just too overwhelming to just think about it all in one hit. So I think come up with little wins that are, it could be personal wins, it could be team wins with your, with your people within your business, but come up with these wins. And another big thing for me, Fraser, I'm a big believer in calling these wins out. So, in 2019, I think I got on there, was slightly hungover from New Year's, and I remember jumping onto Facebook and posting, I was probably 10 kilos heavier than I am now, but I just said, bugger it, I'm going for it. And there was a great session I saw at the FPA conference by an Alex Sheen because I said I would, right? So I think I started my post with, friends and fam, I'm setting myself a crazy goal this year to race 52 marathons in 52 weeks. I'm going to make this crazy goal a reality because I said I would. And I remember posting that and thinking, oh, geez, you're on the hook now, Joey. But like all these friends I hadn't heard from in years saying, this is awesome. This is great. And I think what I did, and then I think that night I raced a midnight marathon out in Narrabeen. A week later, I was, racing one through Tasmania. A week after that, the Glasshouse Mountains. But I think as I kind of went through this, and I went through some little niggles along the way, but I kept calling it out. I kept saying, I'm in Tassie to race tomorrow's marathon. Like, even if I was in pain, thinking, geez, I probably shouldn't tell anyone that I'm actually here doing this in case something goes wrong. I think that's crap. I think you got to call it out. You got to back yourself, whether it's a business growth goal. It could be, taking your kids to all the home games for a sporting team. You got to call it out. You got to get yourself on the hook, because I think accountability is key. It's got personal accountability, but also from those around you. And look, your friends and family only want to see you succeed. So I think by throwing it out there, you'll get more support than you think. So call it out. The bigger the goal, the better, but make sure you call it out and make it happen because you said you would.
Yeah, fantastic. And I love these little wins along the way. It just gives the little bit of dopamine in the brain, in the mind, celebrate the little wins. And as you said, the accountability is a massive part. And so this all becomes back down to the conversation that, you sort of started earlier on. How the hell do you fit in 52 marathons in 52 weeks whilst holding down a corporate job?
Yeah, look, it wasn't easy, and part of my philosophy in life as well is I'm a yes man, like Jim Carrey was in that. I'm sure it won all the Academy Awards the year that it came out, but there was a great message in that movie of just it's easy to say no. I sort of set this goal to do 50, but I also to do 52 marathons, but I was also not going to change my normal philosophy of saying yes. So it did come back to bite me a few times. I did race a few of those marathons hungover, but I think by doing living my normal life and not putting, certain lifestyle, my unusual lifestyle and the things that made me happy on hold to do another goal meant that, yes, I was bloody exhausted some days. But again, when you're kind of happy and you're living in the moment and you're choosing the right energy, it all kind of worked out. So in terms of training, I think when you're racing most weekends, you don't need to do a whole lot of training. I typically squeeze my training in. I'll run into the city. So I'll have my backpack on with my, suit pants and shirt. I've got a few jackets at the office and I'll just run into the gym, have a shower, a little session up to the office. So my usual commute from North Bondi is it's probably about the same time me running as opposed to the, jumping on the 333 and the train in. So it's about, squeezing things in, within your own, rhythm and routine. It's getting smarter the way you do things, and the way you can squeeze things in. If it means getting up a little bit earlier to just have a bit of you time, I think you can't overlook that, because if you're just going through the motions every day, if you're just working within your business and it's just going to feel like a grind and a tough slog, and you will be like that hamster in the wheel. You're not going to get anywhere. You're going to just go around in circles. So my biggest advice to anyone out there is just make sure, and it could be a 10-minute meditation in the morning. It could be just, a walk with the dog. Make sure that you just become part of your routine. Like that run for me into the office, that's like my meditation. I'm pumping some tunes. I had a friend of mine the other day saying, I think I saw you dancing at the traffic lights on the way into work the other morning. But that's me. I'm just living my best life, and choosing that energy, because I think, you got to put that time into yourself, or, all the things all those good things that you kind of set yourself are not going to happen.
Yeah, I think I remember running into a couple of times, or not running, you were doing the running in the city. I think you were on a mission to get somewhere or do something. So it was kind of like you nearly ran us over, but it was good to see you're out and about. And as you mentioned before, running with a big smile on your face.
Oh, that's right. 100%. So yeah, look, I got it done. I will, just for any of those wondering, did I knock over the 52 marathons? Well, I only needed 38 weeks in the end to make that crazy goal a reality. I actually did. I went over to Europe, which kind of fast-tracked my plans. I did 10. I had a cousin's wedding, but I thought, while I'm over there for my cousin's wedding in Oxford, I'm going to do 10 marathons in 10 days in Italy. And then I did about another 6 or 7 around the UK after the wedding. Hungover as, but anyway, look, we won't get into that. But again, I turned that trip. It was part holiday. It was part, goal. Like I would still on the Aperols every night in Italy, still drinking those wines on the lake, eating those pizzas. It is a great place to go and race marathons back to back, by the way, because there's no shortage of carbs in Italy. I will tell you that.
It's a good plan, isn't it? And I suppose it doesn't really matter how many carbs you're eating when you're running a marathon every day. Tell us about, how many marathons did you actually get in the calendar year?
I did 58. Look, I think I could have definitely done a lot more, but I think once I ticked it off, I thought, it's the weather's a bit nicer than usual. I'm just going to enjoy myself and do the odd one here and there. But I think 58, I can definitely outdo that. And once the world opens up again, you better, but maybe 100 in a year I might go for, man. Why not?
They better write a book about it. Hey, I want to talk about something that you did more recently when it comes to, you managed to get onto a series of Survivor.
Yes, I did. And again, this is a show that I must admit I had never watched at the time. I think I'd watched the first season of the American version, kind of liked it, but I never kind of fell into it. And I knew the Aussie one. I'd sort of seen snippets of it, looked pretty crazy, but but it all comes back to, I think, this whole yes philosophy and energy. It all kind of aligned to get me on this show, because I think I was out one night in Manly with a few industry folk. We were having a great night out, and I remember we bumped into a couple of lovely ladies, and I think one of them so happened to be a TV producer, and we sort of stayed connected. And after that, and I think a couple of years later, I think I'd spent the weekend racing marathons and partying on boats. But on the Monday morning, she just messaged me and said, "Yeah, Joey, I might have a TV opportunity for you." She said, we're sort of in need of a big character for a new show for the next season of a show we're about to put out. And I looked at your stories on the weekend on Instagram, and I think you could be that character. So, I got the call up. I went and sat down with the executive producer. And again, it was like the midwinter interview all over again. It was just like, I don't know anything about this show, but give me a shot and I will, blow that thing up. I'll have a great time and I'll bring the energy and I'll have some fun with it. And got the call up. And next thing you know, I'm self-isolating in Townsville for 2 weeks prior to the shoot.
Fantastic. And tell us about that experience.
The self-isolation, or
just the fact that you're up there. It's an experience. Everything's new. Everything's brand new for you. You don't know what's coming, and anything could happen. Tell us about that.
Yeah, again, it was such a foreign kind of environment to be in, and it was one of the in these. I actually am very comfortable in these situations. I feel like this is where you're growing as a person, when you are uncomfortable, when you're out of your normal rhythm and routine, when you get dropped into something that's very foreign. This is where you grow as a person. So for me, it was cool. I think it was just like the show. Like, I think I watched one season of the show leading up to it, so I had a bit of an idea of kind of the mechanics of the game. But let me tell you, it is a brutal environment. So they literally just dumped us out on this big patch of dirt. There's trees and stuff around, and then it's like, all right, guys, you've got a change of clothes. I think we had 5 additional items we could bring other than the clothes on our back. They got dropped off about 5 days after we arrived. So I was literally in my floral ensemble, and that was it. And I looked at the temperatures and thought, oh, geez, this will be more than warm enough. But little did I know, down at the creek bed out in Cloncurry, it gets very cold overnight. So I think for me, like Survivor, as I sort of was kind of getting myself into that mental sort of space for it, for me, it was like this ultimate kind of battle of wits and wills. Like, you've got these really brutal challenges that you got to do sort of every day, but you've also got this mental side of it where, there's a social aspect, there's a strategic aspect. So for me, it was like, trying to navigate in my own mind. And look, I was in the Brains tribe. That's right. I got selected for the Brains tribe. I think 50,000 applicants. There could only be 12 in the Brains.
That was your proudest moment, I think, wasn't it?
I remember calling my mum, saying, "Mum, I'm going on Survivor, and they're doing Brains versus Brawn." And she's like, "Oh, great. So, I wonder what the other Brawnies will be like." And I was like, "Mum, I'm in the Brains tribe." She goes, "Oh my God, this is my proudest mum moment." So anyway, yeah, but it was cool. Like, we literally got dumped there. We had to make fire from scratch. I think for the first few nights, I luckily had a couple of lovely ladies that were, keeping me warm, Laura and Georgia, because, we literally had to spoon each other for those first few nights till we had fire, because it was so cold. The challenges were crazy. Unfortunately, my time out there, I was in a pretty good position. I was pulling off some good moves, but I kind of probably made my move for the top of that totem pole too early, and I got taken out by probably one of the greatest players the game's ever seen in Haley, with a blindside that I definitely did not see coming.
And how do you go now with them all? Because obviously you made some pretty deep connections with people when you're in that position. Tell us about the relationship because they love to demonstrate on a game like Survivor all of the tensions between and the drama between people. But how do you all go as crew afterwards?
Yeah, look, I think for me, and I've got this from past experiences where I've raced through deserts, and you kind of you really build, like, the bonds that you build through hardship are just, you can't compare them to anything, because in a show like Survivor or some of these big runs I've done, you become so vulnerable because you've just got all these, comfort layers peeled back. We hadn't seen our looked at a phone for probably even before we got on the show for a couple of weeks. So we were just disconnected from the outside world. We were very much, we were kind of all in this together, even though we did have to vote someone off, every couple of nights if we lost a challenge. You didn't see it so much. Like, that was just part of the game. But I think the day-to-day, it was just, you are doing all this cool stuff that, we're all, come from different walks of life, but we kind of had to make it work. And it wasn't always, there was definitely some conflicts within, especially the Brains tribe. We did have some sort of, some players that did cause division, but I think all in all, like, these guys will be my friends for life. Even probably the player that I had the most conflict with, that the sort of the edit of the show kind of portrayed. I'm going out to King George's of Bankstown's birthday next week. So like he's a mate. Like Hayley, the one who orchestrated my exit. I've caught up with her. She lives in Bondi. We catch up all the time. We've kind of been through an experience that only those that have been through it can understand. So I think like it's. There is something, and even in the businesses of, out there, that your respective businesses, like, you are going through tough times right now, but you got to stay together as a team, and you get through this, and, you get out the other side. Like, you'll look back and smile at these because, the sort of the harder you work and the more you kind of just to commit to getting things done now, like, it's going to make the reward of getting through it, getting through your exams, getting through all the study, getting through all of this, so much more worthwhile, and you'll look back at almost with fond memories. I think at the time you're hating it right now, but you'll look back at this as this really brought us together as a team, and this is where we really kind of, I think people grow through resilience, right? You become resilient, but you also these times where you have to be resilient, they're the ones where you're actually growing as well. So.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. There's definitely a lot of community around the financial advice space, and as you mentioned, bond, creating bonds through hardship or creating bonds through adversity. So I think there's definitely a lot of that to come. And as you say, in years to come, we're going to look back on this and go a moment and go, well, that was we all survived, and we're all much better off for it. So.
100%.
That's amazing. Now, tell us about your new position. Now, obviously, you're working with a fintech. You're head of advice sales at PADUA. Tell us about that. Yeah.
So, funnily enough, as I mentioned earlier, Matt Esler, one of the founders of PADUA, and his sister Anne-Marie Esler. I think Matt always, or probably Anne-Marie more so than Matt, corrects people when they think that these two could be married. They're actually brother and sister, and they try to get that very clear from the get-go. But yeah, look, this business sort of started as, I guess, like a humble onshore paraplanning business. But as it grew, and it grew through some great associations we had with, like, the Wollongong University, getting their best uni grads into this business. But then, I guess, incubating them and putting them through training and everything to get them to a certain sort of standard. But like, as the business grew, we realized, or Matt and Anne-Marie realized, that it needed really technology, because the whole outsourced paraplanning piece doesn't work just going back and forth. It's not efficient, if you're communicating through emails and things. So, the technology, they built a really good advice request kind of system that sort of sits over it, and some really good workflow management kind of platform that also supported. But then I think as well, like, it was one of the bane of, like, advisors out there, the bane of their existence is this whole double entry of data. And there's so many fintech players out there that, we integrate with, Xplan and whatever else. But I think the issue with a lot of them is it sort of integrates, but then and then what do you do? Like, where does it go from there? So I think what we've tried to build is a bit of an ecosystem where the data flows from the CRM into our digital fact finds, for your review clients and whatever else. But then that feeds automatically into our advice request form. So there's this really good flow of data, but then we can also push the data back into Xplan, which again is real key to this whole kind of ecosystem. But in addition to that, what we're trying to do as well is build some really cool, client engagement tools, give advisors the ability to produce, instantaneous ROAs that, compare, their existing portfolio that is kind of pulled through from their CRM against other providers, but or against their whole APL in one sort of click of a button. But, to make this all happen, we've actually, our tech team, like we actually have completed a recent capital raise where we've raised sort of between about $9 and $10 million. But that is actually, that money, I would look at that as an investment of PADUA. We are investing. We are in We are here to support this industry. We want to make advice more accessible to more Australians out there. And again, that's why we're making a big investment into it. We're investing in people and we're investing in our technology. I think our tech team's just grown from 5 to 25. That's right, 25 full-time developers all onshore. We've got a team now of nearly 100. So PADUA is no longer the little startup that it was. We are now a sort of a scaled-up business, and we've brought in a sales team. I don't know how much of that 10 million I used up, but it was a lot. Not really. But yeah, it's because now we believe that we've got this amazing product, amazing technology, but we've also got any business that partners with us, we wrap a whole team around them. They've got their own dedicated team, an experienced team, an onshore team that can help them get advice out the door. The technology will engage their clients. So for me, it's just the perfect kind of environment to actually, like I said, move that dial, get more advice. Like 11% of Aussies are paying for advice, but 40% can afford it. Which is crazy. That 11%'s come down from 12% as we've seen advisors exit the industry and cull C and D clients, which is crazy, right? So I think what we're trying to do, we want to start really eating into that 40%. We want to get that as close to, any Australian that can afford advice is getting advice out there. And again, it's good people supporting the firms and it's good technology. And that's why I joined PADUA.
Yeah, fantastic. Not only that, it's, a good family business, but not only a family business, your family, part of your family, because they're cousins of yours. Do you feel like this is like the full circle for you? Because it's sort of Matt got you into the industry and now.
Oh, 100%. It's it's a great way to look at it. And I think, this, I do sort of see this as a big sort of family business to a certain extent. But I feel like I have done the full circle. Like Matt brought me into this game and I've kind of been on my own journey. And now I've come back with all those sort of skills and knowledge I've learned, along the journey. And now I'm back and I'm, ready to really put in the hard yards for them and take this business to what I think it could be, which is the imminent outsourced tech-driven power planning company in Australia.
Fantastic. Now, PADUA, PADUA, what does that stand for? Is it stand for anything, or is it where did that name come from?
So again, it is a family business, and it actually the name came about. So Matt and Anne-Marie's late brother. Anthony was actually my age at the time, passed away sadly in 2002. So being the son of good Roman Catholics, he was actually named after St. Anthony of Padua, which is over in Italy. So that's how the name PADUA came about. I think the first big workflow tracking module that we built was Roma. All roads lead to Rome. And as we've sort of built out the tech, we've got, look, I will be honest. Our marketing team, which was probably Matt at the time, lacked any kind of imagination. So what he actually started doing was just Googling Italian cities, I think, and he's just picked them off. Sorrento is our digital fact find, which feeds into Capri, our client fact find. Palermo's our product comparison tool. Sienna's our strategy. So again, if you'll look at this thing and think, who are am I booking a holiday or coming up with a good solution that's going to help my business? Look, we're the latter for sure. But yeah, it does get maybe a little confusing at times.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Pisa coming out. I can't wait for that one. Hey, Joey, thanks for catching up today. How can people get hold of you if they want to continue the conversation with you or find out a bit more about what you're doing there?
Yeah, look, I'd love to talk to anyone, any of the XY crew out there. Again, we're trying to build a really good community over at PADUA. We love, a big believers in the great sort of, I guess, the positive kind of environment that you've created here around advisors supporting advisors. So we definitely want to be a partner of as many of you that need it as we can. My details are available on our website, padua.com.au. Otherwise, you can just call me on my mobile, 0423 946 439. I'd love to hear from you. I'm a people person. I love talking to other people, as I know most of the advisors out there are. So give me a call. I'm not shy. I'd love to hear you on the other end. But yeah, look, again, we're doing some amazing things that, and I really believe in the direction we're heading and how much support we can bring. Brilliant.
Now, you're also on LinkedIn under Joey McCann. It was Joe, Joe, you're now Joey, McCann, McCann.
Yeah, I'm leveraging my reality, stardom or my 15 minutes. I'm now known as, anyone out there who knew me as Joe McCann, he's dead. It's now Joey McCann. You can find me on Instagram, I'm baby Joey McCann. Don't even get me started on that one. But yeah, Instagram, I am Joey McCann. Drop me a little note on there as well. But yeah, look, I'd love to hear from you. Bring
Fantastic.
it on,
Joey, thanks for bringing the energy. Love chatting to you and appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Fraser. Thanks, XY Advisor. In the words of the great Jeff Fennick, I love yous all.